Back at midday and on this Monday, we have your weekly News to You segment, a Sabres shakeup, the adoption of NAFTA, and one of the biggest projects in Buffalo that never was. They all made news this very week in decades past. Dave McKinley remembers when those stories and more were all news to you.
10 years ago this week, sporting the worst record in the league, the Sabres fired 17-year general manager Darcy Regier and coach Ron Ralston and brought in Pat LaFontaine and Ted Nolan. The return to Buffalo of these two fan favorites, though, would be short-lived. Bills fan Robert Hopkins became an internet sensation for falling off the upper deck at the stadium while sliding down the banister at a game, and was later convicted of assault and reckless endangerment for injuring a fan he landed on below. It was also the week that we learned through a shocking admission what might have been behind the increasingly bizarre behavior of Toronto's Mayor Rob Ford.
Have you purchased illegal drugs in the last 2 years?
Yes, I have.
After which, the city council stripped him of most of his powers this week in 2013. 20 years ago this week, this bygone Buffalo restaurant was the scene of a visit by a very important person who prominent Republicans were eager to see and who attracted interest from onlookers all.
I think that's wonderful. Somebody can get to see him now.
I didn't know who it was. I knew something was going on.
We seen all these cars coming in. We thought it was Louis Simonelli.
This week's News to You pop quiz, who do you think was coming to dinner? And name this restaurant that no longer exists, which hosted the event. And here's a hint. This guy who worked at a postal facility near the airport where the guest of honor landed was attracting a lot of attention due to his uncanny resemblance to him. It was also the same week we learned of trouble in Neverland.
Dozens of investigators descended onto pop star Michael Jackson's Neverland Ranch. The investigation comes after abuse allegations from a 12 or 13-year-old Los Angeles boy.
Eventually charged with sex crimes against a minor, 2 years later, the king of pop would be acquitted at trial. And we lost the great Art Carney.
Hello, boy.
At the age of 85 this week in 2003. 30 years ago this week.
Dozens of members of United We Stand pounded the pavement in Williamsville this afternoon, making it clear exactly how they feel about NAFTA.
That would be the North American Free Trade Agreement.
They believe by lowering trade tariffs, NAFTA will send American jobs south to Mexico.
While others believed lowering tariffs would open Mexico's market to American goods and create jobs here.
The answers may not come for months or even years.
If nothing else, the debate over NAFTA, supported by President Clinton, highlighted again the old adage that politics can make for strange bedfellows.
Top members of Clinton's own Democratic Party, supported by labor unions, led the opposition. The president's usual enemy, Republicans, fought for him.
You know, this was unusual. It's not often you find Bill Paxton and Bill Clinton on the same side of an issue.
And with Republican support, NAFTA won narrow passage in Congress this week in 1993. Our local history is packed with stories of big-ticket projects that never came to pass, and this might have been the mother of them all, which also spawned the mother of all lawsuits, which came to trial 40 years ago this week. We're talking about the multi-purpose dome stadium with theme park and hotels, which the county agreed to have developed in Lancaster as a new home for the Bills in 1969. But after it then chose to build an open-air stadium in Orchard Park, developer Ed Cottrell sued for breach of contract. It took 14 years for this case to get to trial, which then took another 42 weeks to complete. When it concluded, Cottrell was awarded $53 million, which after another 5 years of appeals was reduced to $10 million, ending a legal battle that raged for 19 years. It also demonstrates the debate in recent years about whether the new Bill Stadium should have a cover or not is not a new one at all, but one that was kicked around many years before, the days when it was all news to you.
Look at that reveal with the dome. So here's the answer to this week's News to You pop quiz. The VIP who came to Buffalo 20 years ago this week.
Yep.
I think you figured it out,
It was a giveaway.
Once you saw his look-alike, right? It was Vice President Dick Cheney who attended a Republican fundraiser here. We also asked you if you recognize this restaurant that's no longer there, where Cheney appeared. It was, of course, the Park Lane, which was torn down in 2008, but people still talk about how great it was all the time.
What's there now, I wonder?
I think apartments. It was in Gates Circle.
That gentleman looked exactly like
Yeah, he did. So people were probably coming up to him all day.